You're listening to the Wedding Biz Network, the voice of the creative entrepreneur.
Come on, y'all!
Hey everyone, it's Andy Kushner, host of The Wedding Biz, and this is another episode of The Next Level, in which I have a guest co-host, and together we discuss the most recent interview of the week and trying to translate some of the topics into strategies that you can use to bring your own business to the next level. And before I introduce today's guest co-host, I want to mention last week's interview. Last Monday of last week, I had a conversation with the renowned photographer Christian Oth, talking about how he's handling the pandemic. It was really interesting. There was a lot to learn from talking to Christian. So today's guest co-host is Alejandra Poupel from Alejandra Poupel Events out of Paris, catering to an international clientele, including Chinese, Middle Eastern, Russian, and American, all of whom have different expectations based on their cultural perspective. Alejandra, welcome to the show.
Oh, so happy to be back, especially with your soothing, relaxing voice. Just what I need right now.
It's so funny. No, I appreciate that. And those of you listening, if you did not hear Alejandra's interview, you've got to check it out. It was amazing. It was episode number 221. So be sure to go back and listen to that if you missed it. So the person's interview who Alejandra and I are going to talk about today is Rob Van Helden of Rob Van Helden Floral Design, based out of London. Rob's previous clientele includes Nelson Mandela, Pierce Bronson, Joe Malone, Elton John, and various royal weddings and events, including Princess Beatrice, Princess Eugenie, and Princess Margaret's 70th birthday party. So Alejandra, I tell you, Rob is just so humble, isn't he? I thought that was one of the first things that really popped out, was just in spite of his incredible history and reputation, he's just such a nice, grounded guy.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it's not the 34 years, working in the industry that just, in a way it humbles you, because, we all have in our businesses ups and downs and things like that. So he was so humble, so simple. And, he was saying most of the people come to him because of word of mouth. And I actually have heard about him a lot from Joe Malone, who was telling me that he really understood the brand, and he really understood like the scents meaning smells, and that's something very rare. And as a human being, they told me amazing things about him. So I guess that's what makes him humble. Such a great quality to have.
Yeah, it really is. And one of the topics that first grabbed me was that phrase he used, perfect simplicity, how in terms of with the flowers, how he loves their natural beauty, and so he doesn't spray them with paint, or he doesn't hang with crystals or anything like that, and loves to work with a mass of one type of flower for impact and the wow factor, like using all hydrangeas in one color, for example, or all roses. I mean, I just love, again, that phrase, perfect simplicity.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like timeless beauty, or classical, but at the same time, it's true. The flower he respects, you could tell he respects the flower. He respects the beauty of the flower in itself, and he doesn't need to add all this tra-la-la to make it gorgeous. No, I really like that word, perfect simplicity.
Yeah. And we also talked about props, because I know just from researching him, I mean, I'm sure with all floral designers, this is important, but with Rob, there's a real particular focus. And I believe that he probably was one of the first, if not the first, to, make such use of props. He said that he saw a gap in the market when he first started with his business. And so to get these beautiful vessels and candelabras and tea lights and how they go, hand in hand with the tablecloth and the chairs and the plates, and all of that.
Well, I mean, when what really got to me also was when he talked about, the fact that maybe it was his Dutch side, because he was actually born in Holland, that he says that he's, really known for using like fruits and mint and rosemary and lavender in his, bouquets and in his decors that pretty much are very inspired by like Dutch still lifes. And that resonated a lot to me because, I'm very inspired, by art that's all around us here in France. And I think a lot of event designers would say that one of the things that inspires them the most is when they go to, all these expositions and all these, art shows and trade fairs and things that have to do with art. So that kind of, stood out to me. And And then what is really the difference between a florist and an event designer? And the way his work and the way his process is really matches the fact that he not only gets involved in the flowers, but he also gets involved in like the light and sound, because of course you can have the most beautiful bouquet in the world, but if it's not lit well, I mean, what's the purpose? You can't see it. It's this ugly pink lighting, and he always, really is very concerned about the light and sound. And of course, they go so hand in hand, it's basically an event designer works at everything that is visual, anything that you can see, he is involved in making sure that they all match together. And absolutely, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, first of all, rental companies have become more and more extraordinary and, with more beautiful designs and really trying to up the game more and more. It's absolutely, I agree with him 100%.
Oh yeah, I love the points that you're making, and especially with what you said about smells. I mean, immediately I can just kind of go in my mind and imagine the combination, and it's such an art to know how to combine different smells with each other, just like ingredients for a meal. I think it's similar, and I'm not surprised that how many royal weddings and events he's done. I mean, including Princess Beatrice, Peter Philip's wedding, the Crown Prince and Princess of Greece, Princess Eugenie, which was at St. George's Chapel in Windsor, which I can't even imagine. I mean, can you imagine that?
No, it's incredible.
Yeah, must have been something. And celebrities like Elton John. And I mean, clearly people recognize his skill levels.
No, and I mean, when I commented, I remember the wedding for Harry, it was just something, and Meghan, there's like this buzz. There's, the English people really take their royalty seriously. So, he said he was very happy when, of course, he got incredible press. And that picture of Beatrice's wedding, I mean, we didn't see anything about it because it was kind of a surprise to everyone. Yes. And there was it was very different to the other weddings because it was like, okay, all of a sudden we saw a picture and we're like, it happened? What? But that beautiful arch, I mean, who doesn't have a picture or didn't post or repost a picture of that? Like romantic, natural, very natural, beautiful, beautiful arch.
And also before we started to record this, you were mentioning challenges. And I know you had something to say about that. Like when I asked him about the challenges that he runs into.
Well, I think as an event planner, I really appreciate someone who, thinks forward and to all these issues. And one of the issues that he said was the worst enemy. I guess the biggest fear for all florists and, in sync also event planners is the heat. Because, you think, oh, wonderful, it's going to be beautiful. It's not raining. It's not cold. It's great. We're all happy. But actually for the florist, it's his worst nightmare in a way because they have to do things so last minute. They cannot, like a light and sound can do things 2 days before and we're fine. But the florist really has to, think about this heat. And there's so many things that we can do and that we can cooperate and collaborate as planners with the florist, such as, of course, we put air conditioning when we create tented structures outside and, working in Mykonos or working in Morocco, we know what's coming. And so we have to prepare for it, like putting black carps on top of things and just taking them off 2 hours before. So, working and collaborating together for this, mega challenge of the florist. And he was talking about, the heat can really be an issue.
Yeah.
But again, when you're masterful like him, he knows how to make it work. So there's no worries at all.
Do you like music? Do you love music? Okay, stupid questions. Here's the point. You can now hear conversations with some of the biggest music industry professionals around, including artists, songwriters, record company executives, recording engineers, and more. And it's my other podcast called The Music Makers. You can find it on your cell phone's podcast app or at themusicmakers.com. Again, that's The Music Makers. What is one thing in the interview that he talked about that surprised you? Was there anything in particular?
I thought it was interesting when he said that he took the brides to the flower market.
Yeah.
That is cool. It's just something like, I don't know. I mean, me personally, I haven't, been with any of my brides with the florist to the flower market.
Right.
I don't know. It's just, and I think it's such a great way to bond in a way because
I was thinking about that, to hang out together too.
Yeah. And I think that, most brides, they always know the rose and they know the peony. but that's pretty much the extent of how many, the flowers that they know, maybe three, of course, the hydrangea. But I think that maybe taking them to the flower market opens like a world of possibilities that they probably never would have thought of. I just think that's a really great way for him to bond, I'm sure, with the brides and just talk and have conversations and probably be dressed in jeans. Because I mean, when you go to the flower market, you're kind of casual. I thought that was really very great and a good idea.
Yeah, and I remember now that you bring it up when he mentioned how it's also an opportunity for him to like watch their faces to see how they respond to what they see. And I thought that was interesting too. He can really experience that and get a better idea of what he can design for them. What about I asked him about the pandemic. I mean, at the time of this recording, it's early November. I recorded him. It was only a couple weeks ago, the end of October. And he talked about how he's actually, he's working so hard right now. I mean, yes, there's been postponements, cancellations, but he doesn't want to disappear. And so in addition to the changes he's had to make at his own company, like furloughing employees, it's still staying in touch with the clientele and finding a way to keep himself known in the market.
One thing that made me laugh was when he said, well, now I'm like literally delivering bouquets myself. So, I could just totally imagine going ring, ring. And then, having the client
and
be like,
there.
oh, hi, this is Rob. Nice to meet you. You're expecting the delivery guy, for maybe your intimate dinner for 8 or for 10. And I just think that's fabulous. I would love to have him knock on my door. It's great. It's great. And yeah, I think that, as tough times go, this is pretty tough. I mean, here in France, we are in our second lockdown, I would call it, even though it's a bit more flexible because people are going to school in France and people are also, going to work and much more, and many industries are open. It's still a lockdown and it's getting longer. And I think it's tougher psychologically on everyone. Like, the first time the weather was beautiful, you kind of think, okay, I'm going to learn I'm going to learn something new. I'm going to, pivot. The second time is just kind of like, this is getting a bit long and it's harder to stay positive. But I do find that as an industry, it's been incredible. I mean, the way that people have been coming closer together as an industry, supporting each other. Like in my case, for example, we've been organizing sometimes like once a month, like Zoom calls with different people from, all over, be it the States or Saudi or, Chinese planners, and just getting together and giving each other some positive reinforcement and telling each other, we're going to get through this. And, I think it's important to hear all these good news. I have a colleague who's actually doing a wedding in Saudi Arabia right now. And he's like, well, fortunately here we're doing great weddings. It was great to hear. I was super excited.
Wow.
I think it's important. And look at like what Dior's doing to be positive. Dior today, they did an incredible decor of beautiful stars all over their, flagship Champs-Élysées store. And they said, you know what, we're closed, but we're still going to do our incredible decor with beautiful, incredible like sky and stars, because we need to keep positive and we need to keep dreaming. And I thought that was just fabulous.
I agree. Oh, I think that's wonderful. I mean, the fact that people can't see it because you're on a lockdown and yet they're doing it anyway. Well, what about you, Alejandra? I mean, how are you dealing with it? First of all, personally, like, how is it going for you?
Well, personally, I must admit that I'm maybe the selfish mom who has her 2 incredible daughters here at home, instead of being in Washington, because they both go to school in Washington. So I have to admit, that's been like such a blessing. And at the same time, it's a bit prepared me a little bit more for letting them fly the nest, because one was going to be a freshman and one is a sophomore. So she had just left for about 6 months. And it's hard. It's hard to kind of let let the chickens fly, and it's really far. It's, they're, an 8-10 hour flight. And it was kind of tough, but at the same time now it's kind of prepared me more, because I feel like, they were so happy there and meeting so many new people and doing so many interesting new things that, you're just so happy for them to have that experience, that I'm just like, it's time for them to go. They're sick of Zooming 8 hours a day. It's tough. It's tough.
Right. What about from a business perspective? I mean, how are you dealing with people who worked for you and your clients? Is there anything in particular you're doing with them?
I would say that from a business perspective, I think different countries are being affected in very different ways. Like, for example, I'm very lucky. I live in France, which is, a country that, even though has its setbacks, like, strikes every once in a while, right?
Right.
We do have incredible furlough. So basically all the employees, especially in the event industry, because they're being very recognized as, the hospitality and event industry being as affected in tourism as much as it is, as we all know, they are, basically paying the employees 100%. So it's, very, very, helpful for an owner of a business, of course. So that's something that's been really wonderful compared to many other countries, like my lovely colleagues in Dubai, who say there's absolutely no help, or, in the States, which there is, but it's, more complicated, and there's loans apparently. I don't know all the intricacies, but it's not as easy and apparent. So we do have, we've been able to put furlough, but I haven't really put everyone on furlough, because we actually have, I'm very happy, very optimistic clients, and people are calling for 2021. And, we've signed clients for 2021 in September. And, of course, we're getting a lot of, lots of requests for 2022. Some people are just playing it safe and saying, you know what, I prefer not to have the headache of having to postpone. Let's just do it for 2022. And voila,
Yeah.
And I guess a lot of couples being together, it's either made them or break them, So if they're still together after 2 months, I think the guy proposes, She's a good cook. She's really nice. She's patient. I'm going to marry this girl.
Oh, yeah. It's going one way or the other. Well, for me, I have been divorced for a while, but I have this wonderful girlfriend. And during the beginning of the pandemic, we wanted to, as they called it back then in March, shelter in place. So, we did that. And after 5 months of living together, because of that, it went so well, Alejandra, that we've moved in together. So,
oh my God, I love it. You see, you're that success story.
I'm one of the positive ones. Yeah. But I can't imagine. It's so interesting. But yeah, so I'm grateful for that. At least that's one of the positive gifts that came out of it for me. So,
but I'm not surprised, Andy. You're so incredible, like sharing knowledge with all of us. Even before now, it's become more, I guess, quote unquote, popular to share your knowledge and to do webinars and all this stuff. But you did this you were a precursor. You were doing the podcast and sharing everyone's insights and, making us all feel better because, all these like wonderful, incredible planners are saying, well, I made that huge mistake, And I think that just makes us all feel better. And you've been doing it for a while. So I want to thank you for, all your support since the beginning.
Well, you're welcome. And thank you for saying that. I appreciate it. Well, that is all we have time for today. I want to thank everybody for listening. Let me tell you all how you can find more information. First of all, on Rob Van Helden, who we're talking about today. Rob's website is rvhfloraldesign.com. Again, rvhfloraldesign.com. His Instagram handle is Rob070707. And you can find all this in his favorite number.
I wonder why.
I mentioned that. And also for you, Alejandra, for people who want to find out more, and I urge you to do so, go to her website, which is AlejandraPoupel.com. Alejandra Poupel, its last name spelled Poupel. Alejandra's social media handle is Alejandra Poupel Events. All of this can be found in the show notes at theweddingbiz.com. Please follow us, particularly on Instagram at theweddingbiz. And before we go, I want to mention next week's episode on Monday is going to be a conversation with Monty Durham, former star of TLC's Say Yes to the Dress Atlanta. It's his second time on the show. Monty is just so upbeat and positive. It's wonderful having him on the show. So be sure to touch base with us next Monday, and we'll catch you next week on The Wedding Biz.